She cried after losing to Maya Joint last year. Nobody thought she'd come back from it. But 12 months later, on the biggest stage in tennis, Alex Eala didn't just get her revenge. She made a statement the entire tennis world is still talking about. This is the story of heartbreak, tears, and the comeback nobody saw coming. Stay with us, because the ending to this story is one you will not want to miss.
To understand what happened at Wimbledon this year, you have to go back to a quieter tournament, on a quieter court, where a young Filipina with the world watching her every step was chasing something she'd never had before, her first WTA title. Alex Eala had already made history simply by being where she was. She'd broken through as the first Filipino to win a Grand Slam main draw match in the Open era, stunning Denmark's Clara Tauson at the US Open, before falling to Spain's Cristina Bucsa. She was young, she was fearless, and she was rising fast. But there was one thing missing from her resume: a tour-level title. And in the summer of 2025, at the Eastbourne Open, it looked like her moment had finally arrived. She fought her way to the final. Across the net stood a 20-year-old Australian named Maya Joint, talented, dangerous, and just as hungry. Nobody could have predicted just how brutal and how unforgettable this final would become. Eala came out sharp. She built a lead. She found herself with not one, not two, but 4 championship points. 4 chances to close out the biggest win of her career. 4 chances to make history. This was it. This was supposed to be her moment. But tennis has a cruel way of testing the hearts of those who get closest to glory. 1 point slipped away, then another, and then the 4th. Eala blew all 4 championship points as Joint fought back to capture the title in a razor-thin 6-4, 1-6, 7-6, 10 win. A match that should have ended in celebration ended instead in silence. Imagine standing that close to your dream, close enough to touch it, and watching it disappear in front of thousands of people, with the trophy already visible from where you stood. That is the kind of loss that doesn't just end a match. It follows you home. What happened in the hours and days after that final is where this story turns from heartbreak into something far more human. Alex Eala didn't walk away from Eastbourne simply disappointed. She walked away wounded in a way that took months to even talk about. In her own words, looking back on that day, she said the loss hit her quite hard and she cried a lot afterward. Think about that for a moment. A professional athlete, someone trained to compartmentalize pressure, to shake off losses and move on to the next tournament within days, and this loss was different. This one broke through. Even more revealing was what came next. Eala admitted that she couldn't bring herself to watch the highlights of that final for months. Not days, months. For an athlete who lives and breathes match footage, who studies her opponents and her own game with obsessive detail, avoiding the replay of her own biggest chance at a title says everything about how deep that scar went. Can you imagine carrying that for months? Every time the tournament came up in conversation, every time Maya Joint's name appeared in a draw sheet, every time someone online reminded her of those 4 championship points. That's not just a loss in a record book. That's a memory that replays itself, uninvited, again and again. And of course, when a story like this becomes public, the tennis world reacts. Would she ever be able to recover? And of course, when a story like this becomes public, the tennis world reacts. Fans who had watched Eala's rise with pride and excitement suddenly saw a different side of the story. A young star who was human after all, who could be broken by heartbreak just like anyone else. Sympathy poured in, but so did scrutiny. Would she be able to recover from a collapse like this? Would the memory of blowing 4 championship points sit in the back of her mind every time she found herself in a similar position again? In tennis, confidence is fragile, and moments like Eastbourne have ended promising careers before. There's a particular kind of pressure that comes after a loss like this, not just from fans or media, but internally. The quiet fear that the next time you're that close to victory, your body will remember what happened last time, that your hands will shake a little more, that you'll play it safe instead of going for the shot that wins the match. This is the psychological shadow that follows athletes after devastating defeats, and it's one of the most underrated storylines in all of sports. For months, that shadow followed Alex Eala. It followed her into new tournaments, new draws, new opponents, and somewhere in the back of her mind there was one name she knew she would eventually have to face again: Maya Joint. The question wasn't if that rematch would come. The question was what would happen when it did. Because here's the thing about heartbreak in sports: it never really stays buried. It waits. And sometimes it waits for exactly the right stage to resurface.
So how do you come back from a loss like that? How do you rebuild belief in yourself after watching your biggest opportunity slip through your fingers in the most public way possible? This is where Alex Eala's story stopped being about heartbreak and started being about resilience. In the months following Eastbourne, Eala didn't disappear. She didn't shrink from the spotlight or retreat from big moments. Instead, she went back to work. She continued grinding on tour, continued building her game, and slowly but surely, something started shifting. She later reflected that she felt she had genuinely improved over that year, not just in her tennis, but in how she carried herself after adversity. She said she felt she'd grown enough to look back at that Eastbourne loss and actually smile about it. That's not something you say the week after a heartbreak. That's something you say after real internal work. Her season continued to build. She strung together strong results on grass, reaching the semifinals in Berlin as a warm-up to the grass court major everyone in the tennis world circles on their calendar, Wimbledon. She arrived at the All England Club having won 6 tour-level matches on grass that season alone, a sign that whatever damage Eastbourne had done, she had used it as fuel rather than letting it become a wall. But fate has a sense of humor in sports, and sometimes it's almost too perfect. As the Wimbledon draw unfolded, there she was again, Maya Joint. But fate has a sense of humor in sports, and sometimes it's almost too perfect. As the Wimbledon draw unfolded, there she was again, Maya Joint. On the other side of the net in the second round. The same opponent, the same heartbreak waiting to be answered. Except this time the stage was even bigger. This wasn't a WTA 250 final anymore. This was Wimbledon. This was one of the 4 most important tournaments in the sport, played on the most famous grass courts in the world. Fans immediately understood the weight of what was about to happen. This wasn't just a second-round match. This was a rematch a year in the making, carrying every ounce of emotional baggage from that Eastbourne final. Would the tears from a year ago come rushing back the moment she stepped on court against the same opponent? Or had Eala truly transformed that pain into something stronger? Making things even more dramatic, Maya Joint arrived at this match riding an enormous wave of momentum, having just stunned 7-time Wimbledon champion Serena Williams in the opening round. Joint wasn't just a familiar rival anymore. She was suddenly one of the most dangerous players in the draw, playing with the confidence of someone who believed she could beat anyone. For Eala, this meant the rematch she had waited a year for came with an opponent even more formidable than before. Everything was set. The heartbreak, the redemption arc, the bigger stage. All that was left now was for Alex Eala to walk out onto that court and find out in real time whether a year of healing was enough to finally close this chapter.
What happened next is the kind of moment sports fans wait years to witness. The match began, and almost immediately it looked like history might repeat itself. Joint came out firing, carrying every bit of the momentum from her stunning win over Serena Williams into this next round. She broke Eala in the very first game, and before long had built a commanding lead. By the end of the opening set, Joint had closed it out in just 35 minutes. For a moment, it felt like the ghosts of Eastbourne were creeping back in. Fans watching from home, especially the Filipino community rallying behind their rising star, must have felt their stomachs drop. Was this going to be déjà vu all over again? But then, something shifted, and what happened over the next hour would completely change the story. But then, something shifted. In the second set, Eala found her rhythm. She struck the first break of the match, then rode that momentum through a 3-game surge, opening up a lead she refused to let go of. She broke Joint a second time to level the match at 1 set apiece, forcing a deciding third set, exactly the kind of pressure cooker scenario that had broken her heart the last time these two players met. This was the moment. Everyone watching knew it. This was the exact situation where a year earlier, Eala's championship dreams had slipped away point by agonizing point. Would history repeat itself, or would this be the moment she finally rewrote her own story? The answer came emphatically. Eala broke Joint immediately to open the deciding set, then continued to pile on the pressure, refusing to let the Australian find any rhythm. She built a commanding lead and never let go, closing out the set 6-0, a complete dominant bagel to finish the match. After nearly 2 hours of tennis and 12 months of carrying the weight of Eastbourne, Alex Eala had done it. She had turned the tables completely on the player who once broke her heart. Speaking afterward, you could hear the emotional release in her own words. She admitted she really had to dig deep, especially after dropping that difficult first set. And when reflecting on the deeper meaning of the win, tying it directly back to that Eastbourne heartbreak, she said it plainly. This was extra motivation, and she was proud she could finally look back and smile. This wasn't just a win, this was closure.
So what does this moment actually mean, beyond the scoreline? It means something far bigger than one match at Wimbledon. It's proof of what resilience actually looks like in professional sports. Not the absence of pain, but the willingness to sit with heartbreak, to let it hurt, and to still show up a year later and rewrite the ending. Alex Eala's win also made her the only player from the Philippines to advance this far in any Grand Slam in the Open era, a milestone that will be remembered in her country's sporting history long after this particular rivalry fades from headlines. And her reward for this emotional, hard-fought victory?
a next-round showdown with none other than defending Wimbledon champion Iga Swiatek, a 6-time Grand Slam winner, on one of the biggest stages tennis has to offer. There's something deeply human about this entire story that goes beyond wins and losses. There's something deeply human about this entire story that goes beyond wins and losses. We often see athletes as untouchable, as people who are simply built differently, immune to the kind of heartbreak the rest of us feel. But Alex Eala's tears after Eastbourne and her honesty about not being able to watch the replay for months remind us that even the toughest competitors in the world carry real emotional weight. What made her story so powerful wasn't that she never broke down. It's that she let herself feel it and used that pain as the foundation to build something stronger.
So here's the question worth sitting with. Was Alex Eala's victory over Maya Joint really about revenge, or was it about something deeper? About proving to herself that heartbreak doesn't have to be the end of the story? Let us know what you think in the comments below. If you enjoyed the story of heartbreak, resilience, and redemption, make sure to subscribe for more untold stories from women's tennis, the rivalries, the emotions, and the moments that never make it into the highlight reels.